This week's injury update is brought to you by the Jacksonville Orthopedic Institute. JOI is the official sports medicine provider of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hey, listen, Doc, I always think you're the man of the week, but I mean, everybody around the country does probably this week. Bunch of texts and phone calls for Dr. Kevin Kaplan from Jacksonville Orthopedic Institute, Jaguars team doctor. And hey, we just had it scheduled out nicely. We were going to talk about ankle sprains this week. And how tricky can these be anyway, especially the high ankle sprain variety?
Yeah, it's good to talk to you guys again. Obviously, ankle sprains are tricky. There are a lot of ankle ligaments, and when you roll your ankle, you can injure a number of those ligaments, and that's why it becomes very tricky in terms of how you treat, how you diagnose. Obviously we rely heavily on MRIs and the physical examination, and we just kind of work our way through the swelling, the pain, and the inflammation, and you want to be safe and make sure guys can get back and comfortably do their job without risk of further injury.
Absolutely. What's like an indicator as a doctor for any player or any level player? Obviously, things are magnified, here in Jacksonville, but in pro sports and especially at a player at this position. But what's an indicator that an ankle sprain is healing properly, or you can check the boxes that you just indicated in terms of return to play?
That's a great question. We have algorithms of things we look at. You're doing a visual inspection of things. You're looking at swelling. You're looking at how the motion is, non-weight bearing. And then when we weight bear, and are we able to get up on your toes, and are you able to move around? And so there are a lot of different little steps that we take in the process. And honestly, with any injury that we deal with, whether it's professional, collegiate, or high school, there isn't a straight line A to B to C to D and a timeline of this is going to happen on this day, because every body, a human body, and every injury is different. So it's kind of a process, a flow, and everybody is different. Everybody's the way the ligaments heal and the way your body responds is different. So you just have to be able to kind of work through the overall algorithm, but it's not going to be, hey, this week you're going to have this, and the same thing is going to happen to the next player. Everybody kind of reacts different to injury. Dr.
Kevin Kaplan with us from Jacksonville Orthopedic Institute here on Brent and Friends on ESPN 690. We're joined weekly by a doc from JOI, and you can read more about Dr. Kevin Kaplan at joionline.net in his resume. And obviously, I think a lot of folks know Team Doc with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it is a big week. I have this curiosity about tape and heavy tape. We've all had ankle sprains, by the way, even if we've just played a modest level of basketball. It feels like, hey, just tape it up. How much does heavily tape on an ankle sprain in general really solidify and stable things?
I remember when I was in high school, I had a bad left ankle, and our basketball coach we didn't have an athletic trainer. We had a basketball coach. He taped us, and it works. The only issue with tape is that over time, in the course of any game, basketball, football, whatever you're playing, the tape loses its ability to be as good of a support. So if you're in the locker room at halftime, guys that are taping their ankles, you'll actually see them run in at halftime, take the tape off, and they'll get retaped to get that proprioception. You're just trying to give a little bit of extra stability so that the ankle doesn't want to roll out. So a lot of guys will retape, as opposed to, a lace-up ankle brace. That doesn't lose its rigidity, but the tape can, as you sweat and as you torque and pivot, that tape's going to lose its ability to hold you as well.
I think of all these different new ways of recovery, and everybody, obviously at the NFL level, everybody's got it at their disposal. Heck, even the high school kid can have it at their disposal with certain places. But it's just a little ironic to me that tape can still work to that degree. And, now we're seeing braces on knees and other things like that to support. Has there been improvements or modern science that's helped recovery a little bit more? Heck, Patrick Mahomes last year played in the second half, and then he played the following week, and then obviously played in the Super Bowl. Has there been advances from a sprained ankle over the years?
Yeah, I would say the biology isn't different. An ankle sprain now is the same as an ankle sprain back in 1980. But yeah. I do think that, to your point, the modalities, the ultrasounds, the lasers, the different the modalities that the athletic trainers have at their disposal to get things like pain, inflammation, swelling, which is half the battle, certainly can help to propel the athlete back to performing, as opposed to the old school days of, hey, ice and elevate and take an Advil and that's all we got. So I think to your point, things are progressing. We still have to get the ligaments to tighten up and heal, but I think we have ways to get players closer to that 100% mark as they get back out there.
Dr. Kevin Kaplan with us here on ESPN 690. All right, last part about this more specifically is you've taken us through this before. Heck, I think everybody has who's been involved with this injuries at this level when we discuss them. But, I mean, this is just a collaborative decision, right? I mean, you have to almost protect players because players always want to play.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. I mean, you always have to separate yourself. I mean, look, I'm from here. I'm a Jacksonville guy. I want to win, just like all the rest of the fans want to win. But when it comes to our jobs as medical professionals and athletic trainers, you almost have to put your blinders on. And guys like that are injured, like Trevor's and Evan and anybody who's had injuries that you see, they're just the ultimate competitors and they want to play. And so we have to kind of separate ourselves and say, okay, what is the diagnosis? What is the exam? What do we know from the MRI? And is it safe for this player to play? Because, we can put say, hey, look, this is not safe to go back and do right now. Or, hey, you know what, this is, safe. There is a level of risk, but we're comfortable with that. And, the athletes always is going to err on, hey, man, I want to play. I want to go. But we have to be smart about that and protect them, not only in the short term, but in the long term for their career. And I think that, our athletic trainers do an amazing job. That Ferg is one of the best at it and being smart and working together. And the players, we try to get them to understand the anatomy. I mean, they haven't studied MRIs and X-rays, but we sit down and try to explain everything, show them everything, and so that we're all on the same page and try to figure out what's the smart move for them and for the team as well.
Dr. Kevin Kaplan with us here on ESPN 690. I want to ask you about two other injuries that are pretty significant this week and just the injury. And obviously, we know Christian Kirk went out with the core muscle injury. What is core muscle? Like, what's under that umbrella? Because I feel like it's groin to – is that possibly other things? Like, what's the core muscle?
Yeah, so it used to be called a sports hernia, several years ago. The term hernia is a little bit misleading because that indicates that something is, when you have an inguinal or an abdominal hernia, you have maybe in a part of the stomach lining opens up and there's a hole where things can kind of pop out. So a sports hernia, where they've now named core muscle injury, actually doesn't have to do anything with an outpouching. It's where the ab muscles meet up with the pelvis bone, is the same spot where the groin muscles go down the leg. And those two tendon and muscle groups kind of pull opposite of each other. And that can cause a lot of pain when it pulls too hard. And that's what a core muscle injury is. And there's certainly different levels of core muscle injuries, but we see this a lot in our speed guys, and I mean even our offensive defensive linemen. We've had a number of these across the league over the years, and it's just guys with large muscle groups contracting them really hard in opposite direction, and that pulls on that area where they attach.
Gosh, I remember a few years ago, I don't know what it was, 2018, 19, it felt like there was a different guy on a plane to Philadelphia for that surgery or that expert or whatever up there like every other week, and I feel like I haven't heard it in a while, but obviously a tough one for the Jags and Christian Kirk. And then the other one, we already talked about this today, Doc, on the show. This is another one that I hadn't really heard too much about. We know there are concussions in the NFL, but local guy and really good guy, Hayden Hurst, who's been in the league for a while, his dad shared, and then he shared today, that he has post-traumatic amnesia. Is that pretty common and obviously something that has to be taken very serious?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's not extremely common. But when you have a concussion, I mean, this is a traumatic injury to the brain. And if the brain has a trauma to it, then you can have this retrograde amnesia. And that's certainly a concern. It indicates to me that, having had his concussion, his brain has not totally normalized. And so, I do think it's important, and with any concussion type symptoms, and this is, more in Dr. Yoria in the medical arena, but what we know is you got to let the brain rest. And I think, if the one thing that we've learned about concussions, the one thing that we've really done a good job of is identifying it right away, and then being smart about getting players back on the field and making sure they check all the boxes in terms of normal cognitive function, ability to have memory, just like this. I'm sure they're testing him on a regular basis, and he was having trouble remembering things that had just happened, whether it's the test they do or the words or whatnot. And so that just indicates that his brain is not fully recovered. And the last thing you want to do is go out back on the football field and take another hit to the brain. And this can resolve, and he's very optimistic that it will resolve. But I think they're doing the right thing and making sure that they're safely returning to football before getting him out there too early.
Yeah, like what you said there, that it can resolve. That's a very comforting thing to know, and obviously for him and his family too, and others that have had to deal with it, whether it's in football or outside. Dr. Kevin Kaplan from Jacksonville Orthopedic Institute. Hey, man, I know it's been a crazy busy week, too busy with that injury list, but we'll see you in Cleveland. We appreciate you taking a few minutes.
I appreciate your time. Talk to you soon.
All right. That is Dr. Kevin Kaplan from Jacksonville Orthopedic Institute. You can listen to the docs each and every week right here on ESPN 690. A lot going on